This article, by me, was also written as something of a challenge. As was the case with Ghost, I was also challenged to write a philosophical article on time travel, which was not particularly difficult because there's been others as well. So, onward to meeting yourself. Now, travel involves journeying from one point to another, and spatial travel, which we're most familiar with, involves traveling from one location in space to another location. And this is something that happens all the time. We're always moving around. Time travel, of course, involves a journey from one point in time to another. Now, time travel is happening all the time. Unfortunately, it's the boring type, which is, for example, this. Right now, you are a time traveler because you are traveling towards the future at the rate of 60 minutes per hour. So true, yet kind of boring. Now, what about the more interesting types of time travel, such as moving from the present to the past, or going into some future time without all the tedious mucking about and all the time between now and then? Now, these types of time travel would seem to allow you to meet yourself. Now, if you travel in space far enough, you could end up back where you started, going around the Earth, for example. But no one claims that if you travel far enough, in space, you'll meet yourself. Although no matter where you go, there you are. But if time travel is possible, you should be able to travel back in time and meet your past self. And if you take care not to travel too far ahead, you should be able to travel to the future and meet your future self. Now, this time traveling, and especially meeting yourself, leads to all sorts of paradoxes and problems. One of the most famous ones is the grandfather paradox, about someone deciding to go kill their grandfather. But to change it up a bit, we can do a little temporal suicide. So suppose 34-year-old Bill decides for some reason to go and kill himself at age 20. So if he kills himself at 20, he would not exist at 34, so he could not go back and kill himself. Yet, if he's able to travel through time, he should be able to go back and kill himself, which leads to all sorts of paradoxes and problems. And these will be discussed in the metaphysics class. Fortunately for this brief discussion, we don't have to focus on these paradoxes. We'll just look at the problem of going back in time or forward to meet yourself without any temporal homicide or suicide. Now, while time travel and universals, the problem of universals, may seem separate, they're actually closely connected. How so? Well, both involve the problem of multiple location. If you're able to travel back in time or forward, then you should be able to meet yourself. And the problem is this: explaining how the very same thing, namely you, can be in two places at exactly the same time. So for the same person to be in two different places at the same time, the components that make up the person must be capable of existing in more than one place at the same time. That is to say, they must be able to exist in multiple locations. Now, this connects to the problem of universals, which is, as we saw previously, if you looked at the other stuff on the problem of universals, this involves the issue of the same thing existing in different places at the same time. And one part of the problem is determining what it is for two individuals to be of the same type. For example, to use a boring example, suppose you have 6 green marbles. What is it that makes them all green? And for the person who accepts universals, such as David Armstrong, who argues there are instantiated universals, they would all be the same green. So what's an instantiated universal, or sometimes referred to as an immanent universal? Well, an instantiated universal is a property that can exist in multiple locations at the same time. For example, going back to our green objects, for 6 different objects to all be green would be for them to all instantiate the universal green. And the weird thing about universals here is this. The very same identical universal green would be wholly located at each object. So the green of each one, of say each marble, would be the same entity, which is multiply located. And again, this isn't saying that you have like a can of green paint and you dip, your brush in the paint and paint them all green. It's that somehow the exact same green is everywhere. To use kind of a crappy analogy, it would be like you had a single drop of green paint, but you could paint every green thing with that same drop, just one drop, and it's just everywhere. And again, it's not like being over it like a coat of paint, from an entire can painted on stuff. It's as if somehow that green could be everywhere. I know it sounds weird because that's one of the main objections against these types of universals. So how would this tie into time travel? Well, it ties in the following way. If whatever makes a person the person they happen to be is made of instantiated universals, going back in time to meet yourself would be possible. And here's how it would work, metaphysically. First, what makes a person who he is, say Bill, is made up of universals. Second, a universal, by definition, is capable of existing in distinct locations at the same time. So, the universals that make up Bill can exist in different places at the same time. So it would seem possible to have a person identical to Bill standing 5 feet from Bill. This identical person could be the Bill from the future. Since Bill and future Bill would be identical, they would be the same person, namely Bill. So, if a person is made of universals, then they could travel back and forward in time to meet themselves. It would simply be a case of the same person existing in different locations at the same time. So, problem of time travel apparently solved. So what if you don't want to accept universals? Well, one option is to accept what are known as tropes. One of the best-known trope theorists, but being a famous philosopher is like being famous at curling. There are people who are famous at curling, but no one outside of curling knows who they are. I mean, the sport where you have the rock on the ice and the brooms. One person who's famous for trope theory is Keith Campbell, and he accepts tropes. I also accept tropes, did my dissertation on it, so full disclosure, I favor trope theory. So what is a trope? Well, a trope is a property, such as being green, that can only exist in one location at one time. So then what is it for two individuals to be of the same type, such as two Kermit the Frog dolls to be the same type? Well, it'd be for them to have these tropes, green tropes, that resemble each other. Each green trope would be a different entity from the others, but they would all resemble each other. They would all be green, despite it not being easy to be green, because of their resemblance. So where the universal theorist says it's the same identical green in each case, the trope theorist says, well, no, they're all green, but it's because the greens are not identical, but exactly resembling. And as you might suspect, people who don't like trope theory say that sounds pretty sketchy. So if you accept tropes, what about time travel? Well, if what makes a person the person they happen to be is made of tropes, going back in time or forward in time to meet yourself would seem to be impossible. And here's the argument for that. First, what makes a person who they are, say Sally, would be made of tropes. Second, by definition, tropes are incapable of existing in distinct locations at the same time. So the tropes that make up Sally, for example, cannot exist in different places at the same time. So it would not be possible to have a person identical to Sally, say future Sally or past Sally, standing 5 feet from Sally. So a person could not travel back or forward in time to meet themselves because time travel would not be possible. But what if you want time travel and tropes? Well, fortunately, there is a fix. So relativity perhaps can save the day. According to modern physics, based on Einstein's special theory of relativity, there is no absolute and universal time. Why? Well, time is relative to each thing. So each thing carries around its own personal time scale, which is not the same as the time scale of other entities. Now you may think, but surely this is, science fiction-y. But actually it's been proven concretely. How so? Well, back when we had a space shuttle, what they did is this experiment. They took one atomic clock, put it in the space shuttle, took another atomic clock, and synced it up with the other atomic clock, and then the shuttle goes up into space, comes back down, and they found that because of the speed of the shuttle and its location in the gravity well, there was a difference in the time, in the ticks of the clock. Now the difference is really small, and a human being wouldn't, we wouldn't notice it, but it is apparently real. So once relativity is established, the notion of same time is gone. So each thing is its own time, which will change with its location and speed, so there is no objective basis for sameness of time. What does this entail? Well, this entails that nothing can be in two different locations at the same time, because being in two different locations would put you in a different time. So any two things would always be in different times. Slightly different, but different. So this would seem to spell the end for instantiated universals. Why? An instantiated universal has to exist in different places at the same time. Since there is no sameness of time, instantiated universals cannot exist as defined. Now, once again, in a way, there are no final victories in philosophy or final defeats, so defenders of universals believe they have a way to work around this using, frames and so forth, and those who disagree with them, like me, say, no, those don't work. But let us allow it to work for the sake of discussion, or rather, not work for universals, but let's allow the objection that there is no universal time to defeat instantiated universals. So how would this save the day for the tropes? Well, here's how it would work. If people are made of tropes, they can still travel back and forth in time, if time travel is possible. For example, Bill has traveled back in time to ask himself where he left his keys. And past Bill tells future Bill where they are in return for a bit of advice on how to, bet on the lottery or pick lottery numbers later on. Both Bill and future Bill can be composed of the same tropes, yet still meet. This is possible because Bill and future Bill would actually exist at different times. So there's no need for Bill and future Bill to exist at the same time. They simply need to have their times close enough to allow them to interact, which is something that happens all the time. We're interacting with other objects that have slightly different time, and as long as they're close enough, that's fine. So it seems that one can have their tropes and their time travel too.